Okay, very good. So let's get started. Good morning, everyone. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Sinziana Poiana. I cover civil society support in the European Union delegation to Ukraine. For the past months, a lot of you may have seen me or heard me in the previous information sessions speaking about our currently open call for proposals for the Ukraine Civil Society Facility. As a brief reminder, we are now a month into the application time, so exactly 1 month away from both the launch on the 14th of June and the application deadline for concept notes on the 14th of August. We are making available approximately 12.5 million euro to be distributed as grants to civil society organizations and their partners across 7 lots. Each one of them having different priorities, different eligibility criteria that may qualify you for receiving this funding or not, and different types of activities. A couple of weeks ago, we organized a marathon of information sessions, starting with a general one on the 22nd of June, and then lot-specific sessions, as well as a thorough concept note elaboration training. All of these materials are available online, so you can, if you are not able to either stream in or join the Zoom meeting at that time, I do highly encourage you to go back and revisit this material as you are going through the concept note preparation. Also, because the purpose of the session today is to go through some of the questions that that came up in this past month. You have submitted a really record number of questions. However, I cannot really stress enough how important it is to read the guidelines. That is like the equivalent of the Bible of this call for proposals. All the rules that are necessary and sufficient for you to submit an application are there. All the rules that are not there do not exist. So it's a very simple, let's say, legal principle that these guidelines follow. I'm also emphasizing this because although we have received many questions for this session, and we will do our best to answer as many of them as possible, a lot of them were a repetition of the questions that we received for the previous information sessions, and most of them were actually quite easily identifiable in the guidelines. So the information that we are able to supply to you directly via this information sessions will not actually bring a lot of added value, because us ourselves also refer to the guidelines. So this is just a short reminder on how important and what is the functionality of the guidelines for the applicants. That should be your first reference point whenever you have a question such as, is my organization eligible to apply? What types of projects am I able to submit? Which, based on our analysis, were the most frequent types of questions that we received from you. A second invitation, please revisit the information sessions that we have streamed a couple of weeks ago, as it seems from your questions that some of that, especially when it comes to lot-related questions, have been covered in those sessions. Nonetheless, today, together with my colleague Yazenka, we will try to do our best to give you the most comprehensive answers to the questions that we received, and hopefully make it as relevant as possible to everyone else. We have also received about, I think, 60 or 70 official clarification questions via the functional mailbox of the call. Just to tell you that in the next 2-3 days, we will publish that on the EuropeAid website and on the website of the EU delegation. So that has, let's say, a legal, it is a legal reference for you. If you do have this type of questions that you think, have not been answered, again, I encourage you to send an official clarification request. And only after you have read the guidelines and have a reasonable belief that your question has not already been answered in the guidelines. If it has, then I can already preempt it and tell you that if your question is who is eligible for this lot, then the only thing that you will most likely get back will be a reference to the section of the guidelines that states eligibility. So, also choose your questions well and make, let's say, good use of this possibility to ask for real clarifications. Okay, so without further ado, what we propose for this session is to spend about 20 minutes answering some of the generic questions referring to the call in general, rules for submitting an application. Then we will answer some of the questions related to the submission of the concept note, since this is the step at which we are, and this is what will be expected from you on the 14th of August. And then we will move on to some of the lot-specific questions. However, again, this was the section where I found that a lot of the questions that we received have already been answered in the previous information sessions, and they are also really too many questions for us to address on such a short amount of time. Therefore, specifically when it comes to lot-related questions, if your question will not be answered today, please do go and revisit the information sessions specific to the lot, where you will also see sector-specific presentations from myself or my colleagues as to what do we understand through the priorities that we set forward in the call. I would like to also inform you that during this session the chat is closed. You should not expect to receive any kind of response to the questions that you submit in the chat. Also, because we had 300 registrations, almost 300 registrations for this session, and we have only 50 minutes available. So it will not be possible for us and my colleague to handle additional questions than the ones that were submitted in the registration forms. So I will proceed to the first section, choosing maybe questions that are, at least from our point of view, more relevant to a wider group of civil society organizations, but with the aim of answering as many of them as possible. So, which organizations are eligible? This, again, a very frequent question, also for the lots. What you need to do is to look at section 2.1.1 of the guidelines, see if you meet the eligibility criteria for the lot that you are interested in. The only, let's say, more complicated thing there, except that you need to be, registered as a legal entity, you need to be not-for-profit. You have different criteria as to where the organization is registered for, depending from one lot to the other. So this, again, you need to pay attention who can be a co-applicant, where they can be registered or not. Please have a look at the definition of what a civil society organization is in footnote 14, and try to have your own assessment on whether you meet the criteria of our definition of a civil society organization. I can already tell you that, even if you ask us for a very specific clarification request, we are not able at this stage to give you a definite answer, you are eligible or you are not eligible. Eligibility itself is, let's say, a state that gives you access to the funding. It does not prevent you from applying. Therefore, for us, until we don't see all the documents, until we don't see the legal registration of your organization, tax excerpts, everything that would basically build your case that you are eligible to receive the funding, we are not able to give a definite answer. Therefore, this is also to maybe temper a little bit the expectations that you would have as to let's say how comprehensive our response to this question would be. In some cases, it can be more specific. So, for example, we have here: can a state university think tank from Ukraine be an applicant, taking into account that the think tank is a university department at the university and has a certificate of not-for-profit status of the organization? So again, you have the certificate. I don't know what this certificate is, if it's a legal incorporation or if it's a certificate from the tax authority. A public organization may also be not-for-profit. So you need to see whether it fits into this definition and basically build your case whenever we will go through the assessment. Yeah. So from this question, I and my colleagues will not be able to tell immediately whether you are eligible or not. Think tanks are eligible. Civil society organizations are eligible. Public institutions are eligible only under Law 2, a specific type of public organizations. So you need to consult your legal department, and you need to see what are the documents that, in case you are successful to the next stages, what are the documents that you will present to make your case that, the criteria as presented in the guidelines are met. Okay, moving on to some other questions. I will just read them out loud, and I hope I understood them correctly. If an organization, an applicant, has its own offices that can be used free or charge, equipment required for the project, etc., how should we show it in our budget? Reference co-financing. Note that in-kind contributions are not eligible for this grant. Therefore, you cannot say using our offices is a contribution to this project. Yeah, the only type similar in-kind contribution that you can have is volunteers and monetizing the work of volunteers. So you are allowed, and I will speak about it a little bit later because there is a question in that regard. We do allow for a maximum of 50% of your co-financing to be calculated if you are using volunteers and if their work will be used in this project. Then 50% of the co-financing of this project can be considered to be volunteer work. But this is the only type of in-kind contribution. Yeah, so indeed, at this stage already, you do not need to submit a budget. However, if you are thinking about it, note that you will need to just basically, the budget is what goes through the bank account of the project or the expenses associated with the project. Yeah, so it's basically just money coming in and out, and not in kind projects or equipment to use and so on. Are there any requirements for the involvement of the CSOs from the EU countries? Yes, there are. It depends what type of involvement, but some laws allow for partners and for lead applicants from EU countries. Others do not. So you need to pay attention for which lot you intend to apply, and whether you can have co-applicants registered in co-applicants, or if it's about a lead applicant, registered in an EU member state. Could one applicant apply with one application that covers several different lots? A very important question. There were several along these lines. You can submit as many applications as you want, but only one will be financed. So even in previous information sessions, I was trying to make this point that, of course, us as the funding organization, we are guided by quality. Yes, so this is why ultimately, if you do submit more projects, we would end up choosing the one that we find, to have the highest quality, and you will be disqualified at the last stage if there are more applications that would be selected. Basically, if you are to be awarded more applications, one or more will have to be excluded until we would finance just one. Technically, in Prospect, it is not possible to submit one application under multiple lots at the same time. You can submit one application for each lot, yes, but of course, the question then is related to the evaluation. How will you justify? So one of the most important criteria in the evaluation grid is how your project responds to the priorities of the lot. Yes. So if you have the same project that, in your opinion, is valid for multiple lots, then you are either in the position to argue how it fits under each lot, so therefore there will be different applications, or you just submit an application just like that is not relevant for the lot and probably will not pass to the next stage. So you really need to think about this very carefully, because we have, and although there are some overlaps, when you look at the structure of the let's say team that we expect to carry out the project in combination with the priorities, I would doubt that there would be so many overlaps. So you really need to assess what is, let's say, the most efficient ratio for you of input into an application versus the results that you expect. Of course, even though you are applying for one lot or all the 7 lots, or if you will justify in each proposal that your organization has a lot of expertise or has a lot of you have to fill in, yes, your previous projects, but that all these previous projects that you did are relevant for each of the lots, then also there I don't believe that you would be that this would be an advantage during the evaluation, because basically you would need to argue that your organization does all of these things, which is unlikely. May applicants be awarded as a lead applicant and a co-applicant? Again, only one award. So you are allowed to submit how many applications you would wish to submit, but only one award. There are some questions that use a lot of abbreviations that are not really common knowledge. I do invite you for the future, not SOW, SCS, STS. I do not know what this is about, so I'm not able to answer questions that I do not understand. So try also to think of your audience when you send us questions in order for you to get the right answer. Is an infrastructure component possible for partners from non-EU countries? As an example, for purchase of laboratory equipment. In the guidelines, you will see the list of eligible costs. In principle, yes, I mean, everything, including laboratory equipment, everything that you would want except the ineligible costs, for example, mortgages, scholarships, there's a category of that you will find also in the guidelines with ineligible costs, but all the rest, what is not mentioned there, is eligible. So this includes infrastructure repairs, equipment, and of course there are specific rules that we have and we apply for example, if you want to do works on a building, then we will have to check for, ownership of the building, have our own assessment. So it is a bit more complicated, but it is possible we can cover those costs if the justification that you would submit in the budget at full application stage would be strong enough to justify that these are essential to carrying out this project and contributing to the objectives that you yourself have set in the projects. Are individual entrepreneurs eligible to act as co-applicants? Again, eligibility criteria, section 2.1.1. For all lots, only legal entities are eligible to apply. Therefore, if you are not registered as an organization, as a legal entity, not a natural person, then you will not be able to receive. You can apply, but if you reach the last stage, you will be excluded. Natural persons would be excluded if they are not a legal entity, of course. Which format of cooperation with local authorities can you delegation recommend? These are not the type of recommendations that we can make. You probably noticed that for Lot 1, Sustainable Development, we do encourage partnerships with local authorities, which is why that is the only lot where they are eligible as co-applicants. So, that is one, but more than that, you need to see how it fits into your application, what the lot allows. Probably the best way would be to include them as associates, or to have some sort of partnership with them, but not as co-applicants, because they are only eligible exclusively under Lot 1. So as to the concrete form or depth of the cooperation, again, it depends on the project that you intend to submit, on your objectives, and how do you see the added value of this cooperation. Can we get a list of ongoing EU programs in the field of culture so we can connect to the ones we may know yet? All the projects that the EU funds in all the countries, you are able to consult online on the financial transparency system that the European Commission maintains. However, we are not in the liberty to disclose any type of private data of, organizations that would be on the lead, who is on the lead, and so on. And this is really up to you. For us, it is a question of, maintaining data privacy of our partners. Therefore, we cannot disclose this type of information. What kind of organization would be more preferable as an applicant? I think this refers also to Lot 2, or a partner, foundation, national museum, or NGO. We would not be able to say. It really depends on your action, and it really depends on, we assess basically value of partnership. The value of partnership is if you are able to justify in the context of your project, why do you have a certain partner in your project. So it can be whatever legal form, as long as of course it meets the eligibility criteria listed under the lot you want to apply, but we cannot tell you we prefer this or we prefer that, because you know the project that you intend to submit. We would not know this. Are we expected to create synergies with other ongoing projects in Ukraine? You will see that in the concept note. I believe that you are also being asked of similar initiatives. They don't need to be EU funded. I think it shows a little bit of how connected you are to the field where you work, and how well you know the actors. If you are able to refer to ongoing initiatives, or to past initiatives, and what was learned out of those, especially if they are similar to what you propose. But it is not, it is really up to you if it makes sense in your concept note or not. I mean, the concept note is not a test of knowledge. It just needs to convince us that the project that you propose is relevant and that you are the best organization or organizations to carry it out. Can organizations from EU member states be part of the project? Again, it depends from one lot to the other. Consult the eligibility criteria for the lot you want to apply, and you will see if organizations from an EU member state or from another Eastern Partnership country are eligible to join you in the project. Can an international conference with participation of foreign partners be allowed? Yes, of course. This is yes. The organization of such a conference could be covered by direct costs eligible under this funding. How to get sponsorship for an independent TV channel which tells about business, social life, and economy. I mentioned this question because I mean, of course, it is not the topic of this information session to go over sponsorship opportunities for TV channels, but under Lot 3 on independent media, it is possible for not-for-profit media. So you need to prove that you are a media organization and that also you are not for profit. It is possible for not-for-profit media to apply and receive funding as a lead applicant or a co-applicant. So if you are in this category, you may apply, and it's the editorial, let's say, content is really up to the applicant or the consortium of people applying. Is it allowed to purchase equipment? Again, yes. Can we reference different policies? Yes, you can reference, whatever EU policy, would fit into your proposal, or it can be a national policy. It just needs to be convincing, and it needs to be relevant. Again, it's not a test of knowledge. It's you convincing us that your proposal for the project is relevant. About contribution, if we plan to apply for a grant of €1 million, 50,000 we can contribute by volunteer work and €50,000 by money. This is correct. I wanted to say this question just to get because I think it shows very clearly on how co-funding based on volunteer work works. So you're allowed the maximum 50% of the co-funding to come from volunteer work, as long as it is associated with the implementation of the project. Otherwise, your co-funding needs to be covered either from other organizations that do not use or would not use for this specific source EU funds, or from your own contribution, or from, I don't know, membership fees. And because there was another question along these lines, you will be requested to submit this information at full application stage. Yeah, so there you need to submit the budget form, and then in the budget form, on the last page of the budget form, you need to say what are your sources of co-funding, and this will be evaluated also at full application. So we will look whether this is feasible, whether the budget is whether your organization is sustainable enough to implement this project, or the consortium of organizations, and we would also look at how credible your co-funding is. Okay, the EU framework for civil society engagement. I invite you to revisit the session we did on June 22nd, and there I mentioned all the priorities that we have for civil society engagement in Ukraine. If you do not want to watch that video, I invite you to consult the EU roadmap for engagement with civil society in Ukraine. That would also give you an idea of what our priorities are, both the general ones and the more specific ones. Okay, I will stop here because actually the questions that I see from now on seem to have been answered in previous sessions. For sure, I remember answering them. So I will stop here, and I would invite Yazenka to take over the next block of questions. And Yazenka, if you can just try to pick on the ones that would be more general, so let's say more applicable to a larger number of organizations, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Sinjana. Thank you. Hello, everybody. It is impressive to see that today we have 108 participants. As Sinjana mentioned, that we were really impressed with the number of your questions, and we received several hundreds of them. Basically, what we try to do among ourselves is to divide them between those that are really concerning the overall information, as Sinjana just mentioned, in terms of the eligibility of actions and the costs, and all these elements that are really applicable to all of you. Then I will try to take care of the issues that are really related to the concept note and some of the technicalities, and perhaps we can, if we have some time, we can go to a lot specific questions towards the end of today's session. Basically, I tried, in terms of the concept note, I tried to analyze them and to group them just to make our time the most efficient today. And while reading them and going through them, I can group them, and I can see actually they can be grouped into 4 main categories. One is filling in the concept note, which is the development of the concept note itself. Second group of the questions, they do relate to the budget. Then the third is how do you submit your concept note, and there are several that can be grouped in the category of others, which do not belong to any of the 3 previously mentioned. Now, if I go through this first group of the questions which are related to the filling in the concept note, what we can see from your questions is that you are still altering between the form for the application for the grant and the concept note. Basically, just to repeat once more, the call for proposal that you are applying now is regarded as restrictive, which means at this stage you are applying for the concept note and not a full grant application. In the session we had in a couple of weeks ago, we had one session dedicated to the initial training to the concept note. We shared with you the link from which you can download all relevant annexes to this call for proposal, and one of them is Annex A, which relates to the concept note. So basically, at this stage, you are filling in the concept note. It is in some extent, it's it gives you sufficient level of the guidelines, but at the same time, I understand that it can create certain amount of the confusion at the same time. So basically, what I would like to invite you, if you can go back to this session, if you have time, and go through the presentation we shared with you. If you can go back to the concept note, Annex A, so you can see that there is one part that really tells you, what are the subtitles of the concept note that you have to fill in. And there is a declaration of the lead applicant that needs to be filled in and signed. So those are the 2 main elements that you are submitting at this stage. A third part of this Annex A1 gives you the guidelines how to fill in the concept note. And if you go back to this session, you will see that really you should pay attention to each of the elements that is indicated there. Then So basically, one of the questions here again is, as Cynthia mentioned, features of filling the concept note, which projects are financed under the lots. So as Cynthia mentioned, if you go back to the guidelines, you will have a clear direction. What are the priorities under each of the lots? What are some of the possible actions? Some indicative list, but you can come up with some other if you think there is something else needs to be included, and so on. Detailing priorities, requirements of the applicant, and features of the application, selection criteria. Okay, again, as mentioned, we are dealing now with the concept note development and then selection criteria. First of all, some major elements is your eligibility of those who can apply, eligibility of actions, eligibility of activities, eligibility of the costs, but also the guidelines for applicants give you clear list of the evaluation criteria. So please go back to this part and you can see precisely how your concept note will be evaluated. What are the questions and what are the elements the evaluation committee and the assessor will be looking for, and how many points you can get for each of them. As we mentioned during our initial training and the information session, it would be advisable, strongly advisable, if you can spare some time prior to the submission of the concept note and have internal assessment of your concept note to see, how would you score yourself against these criteria. Or perhaps you can ask some of your colleagues or the peers, trusted peers, if they can give you the objective assessment of your concept note. Core concept of the project proposal, more concretely information about objectives of the proposal. Again, yes, maybe we are kind of keep repeating the same information, but the answer to this particular question is really disclosed in the guidelines for applicants. So it really tells you what are the objectives and what should be objectives of your proposal. In our initial session of development of the concept note, we try to share with you, what would be the way while you are developing your concept note, how you relate objectives of your concept note with the objectives and the framework of the guidelines for the applicants. So since we don't have time to go through this part of the session today, I really encourage you strongly to go back and listen to the whole initial training. Is there any suggested structure of the detailed analysis of the problem to be addressed? Again, the template for the concept note and the instruction, if you follow it, you will see that you are asked at a certain point that you really describe the problem you are trying to address. How do you come up to this problem analysis? We try to share with you within the information, the initial training, how you develop, how do you analyze your problem that you are trying to address? How do you develop the problem tree analysis, and what does it mean? And so our suggestion would be, if you can have internal session within your organization or your designated partners, really to have one-day session, half-day session, and try jointly to develop this problem tree, and then try to translate it into the I would say a coherent way, understandable to potential audience, and so on. Should we provide risk assessment in the concept note? If yes, where? Yes, it is a part of the description of the annex of the action within the concept note. And as I mentioned, there are several bullet points, and one of the bullet points under the description is asking you to provide the intervention logic, to describe the intervention logic of your project, and also to give a brief assessment of the assumption and the risks that are related to your potential proposal. One thing, again, I would say refer you to this initial training, to the concept note, because we share with you at that time how you can define your assumption and the risks, and basically also suggested to you that perhaps, even though you don't have to submit the logical framework at this stage, you use the template of the logical framework really to design your action, and it is really important. also, and I will strongly encourage you to start from developing it, even though you don't have to submit it at the level of the concept note. Shall lead applicant give the description or a description of co-applicants in the concept note? Yes. Yes, please. There is a section within the Annex A1 which really refers you to the lead applicant and co-applicants, and it is particular added value described and defined target groups and the beneficiary. So please, yes, there is a part. And first of all, please, I would kindly and I would stress that basically you really be careful in selecting your partners at this stage, because any changes that will come up with the full proposal, they will have to be justified and described in terms of the lead applicant. So the section 1.4 of the concept note requires you to indicate the lead applicant, co-applicant, and affiliated entities, if any. Okay, so this is okay. The final question in this first group of the questions filling in the concept note is including the co-financing an advantage for the concept note. It is not an advantage, it's a requirement. So if you look into the guidelines to applicants, you will see that you have the minimum and maximum amount to ask for from the eligible cost. The maximum amount is 90%, which means that this 10% is a minimum requirement for your co-financing. So now I think we can move to the budget part, one of the questions is, in what place of the concept note shall the lead applicant give the description of the budget? And this is really a good question, because I try to look again into the Annex A1 that is available for you, and I will share with you just for the moment, so you can see. For some reason, I cannot have the. For some reason, I cannot do this screen share at this time being. But basically, if you look at the Annex A1, really, if you analyze it for the moment, there is no room where you put the budget. Okay, and the reason is because you are required to submit this concept note via prospect. Okay. But if we go to the original template of this Annex A1, then in the sections that are numbered as the, hold on for a second. That are numbered as 1.4. Again, as I mentioned, the lead applicant, you will see the table for the lead applicant and for the co-applicants and so on. In this table, you have to give the Europaid number ID, which is your PADR ID, the legal entity number, legal status, and for you and co-applicants as well. Why it is not included in the Annex A1 that you have available at the moment is because this section needs to be deleted if you are applying via prospect, which means when you come to the stage of applying via prospect, you will be required to provide this information. Okay, so yes, you will need to inform. The same goes with the project details, which is the section 1.5. You don't see this at the current form of the Annex A1, which you can download, or you got with the complete package for the guidelines for the applicants, because again, if you look into the details of this paragraph, it says this section you need to delete if you are applying via prospect, because you are obligatory to apply. It is not visible for you. But in this particular session, you will have to indicate what is the budget and what is the requested EU contribution as a percentage of the total eligible costs for the action. Okay, so this is where you indicate your budget. At the level of the concept note, it is only the indication of the overall budget. but please be reminded, as it is written in the guidelines for applicants, there cannot be the major alteration between the budget you will be providing now, and if you are invited at the full project proposal phase, it can be only a 20% difference, which means really you have to pay attention at this stage when you are designing your action or your project, and this means that you have to really go back to this logical framework template I was mentioning before. Okay, so how detailed the description of the budget shall be, as Cinziana mentioned, at this stage you are not submitting the budget form. It will be part of the full application stage, but you are indicating the overall budget and the requested amount of the EU contribution. Okay, so in what way we should present the budget in the concept note? This is exactly what I've told you. So it will appear to you when you are registering in a prospect, but perhaps we can see with our colleagues from the delegation how we can share with you this original annex, so you know what you can expect and at what stage you will be expected to give this information, or actually in what part of the concept note you will be expected to provide this information. Okay, one of the questions here as well is what are particular added value elements, which is 1.3.4 of the concept note. And if we can give the example, if you look into the template, it gives you some, or the guidelines, how you should fill in the concept note. It gives you some indication what it could be. Okay, so basically it could be a public-private partnership, some of innovative approaches in the proposal that you want to introduce. It can be some best practices, but basically it really, there is no formula from our side that we can give you at this stage. The assumption would be that you are trying to propose certain intervention at this stage in the lot, in the sector or the team you are expert in. You are also creating partnership with your with other colleagues, other NGOs, because you understand that if you join forces together within this action, you will contribute the best. So, among yourself and having in mind your expertise and their previous experiences and your understanding what are the needs within this team or the sectors, I'm sure you will be able to define, okay, what is the specificity, what is the particular value added that your consortium, your partnership, your intervention is bringing in. And this can be also something you should pay attention to, because on this basis you are creating competitive advantage with others who are competing for the grants within the same lot and so forth. Okay, so how are we doing with time? We have it's 11:50. In terms of the submission of the concept note, which is the third of the group of the questions, some of you ask, has a concept note to be submitted via prospect as well? Please go to the session 2.2.2, which is page 31. You are obliged to submit via prospect, and there is a guidelines how to do it. There is a manual. What are the deadlines for the project? Does this mean for the application? Application is written, the deadline for application is written on the guidelines for the applicants on the Annex A1, and also, please refer to this deadline. Must all the co-applicants submit through prospect or just the lead applicant? It is only the lead applicant who is submitting through the prospect, the concept note. Do other NGO have to register with PADR if the project is submitted in partnership? How to use PADR? Again, please go to 2.2. It's a page 30 of the guidelines for the applicant. It tells you that yes, you have to register for the in the PADR, and also it gives you a link where you can learn about how to use the PADR and how to register in the PADR. We mentioned during the information session that you should not wait until the last minute to register with the PADR. Use it now, because you can visit it, you can see what needs to be submitted. You have to prepare the documentation that needs to be uploaded. So, and this is why it cannot be left until the last minute. And then I'll just briefly go with these other questions. What is the most typical mistake that lead applicants makes? From my experience, basically the biggest mistake is that when you are submitting your application, you are really not paying attention to what is written in the guidelines to applicants. And as Cynthiana said, please, this is really a Bible. Whatever is written is obligatory. What is not written, it doesn't exist, so you don't have to think about it, and you don't have to worry about this. Additional element that could be regarded as the most typical mistake is basically you start developing your concept note later, and then you try to rush it, and the information is really not coherent. It doesn't make sense. And so on. So, and also in the initial training for the concept note, we try to give you tips how you put your analysis and everything you try to develop and to articulate in your concept note. How do you make it appealing to those that you are presenting your application form? And I will stop here because we have only 7 more minutes for this session today. We will have additional session on the 16th, so maybe we can go back to some of these questions, and I'll pass the floor to Cynthiana.
Thank you very much, Zdenka. Very good. I would like to take the remaining of the session to basically go through a number of questions, also quite general, but that I believe would be for everyone's interest, and also some specifications. So first, note that in the clarification questions that we received officially through the functional mailbox of the delegation, there were some that came in Ukrainian. We cannot answer questions in Ukrainian. You are expected to submit questions in English. You will receive answers in English. And of course, all the communication related to your application, including the text of your application, needs to be in English. So this is something that can disqualify you at the concept note stage. So please, we will. I mean, the quality of of your English is not something that it will be evaluated, as long as we understand what you are trying to say, but it needs to be in English nonetheless. Second, there was a question on how to take into account COVID-19 and in which lot can you have projects related to COVID-19. You will see, and this is something that I explained in the general information session as well, COVID-19 related issues are to be seen as mainstream issues across the board. So when you design your project, it is also for us it would be interesting when we assess the relevance to understand whether you have taken into account the risks that are involved by extended quarantine measures, needs of your beneficiaries. So basically, you would need to take into account that we are now still in the middle of a pandemic, and that under all likelihood, when all of this is over, the world may not look so much as we knew it before March this year. So this for us is a question of relevance. So you saw that the code does not have a public health necessarily, angle or specific priorities related to public health, but you are expected to take into account this new and very particular context, and more specifically the needs of your beneficiaries in light of this crisis, and what can you do to contribute, as well as the risks that mitigating measures of this crisis can have for the implementation of the project. Then, who can be recipients of financial support to third parties? This is for you to define. Again, it needs to make sense in the context of your project, in the context of your application, and it comes to you to justify why you chose a certain type of organizations. What is important is that, not now, but at the full application stage, you will be, if let's say, you are obliged to propose financial support to third parties. You are obliged under certain laws, or if you want to under other laws, you will need to describe the characteristics of this support. And under this, one of the characteristics is the type of organizations that you will support. So you are not asked to identify who you are going to support, but is it going to be other civil society organizations? Is it going to be non-registered civic groups? Is it going to be individuals? Is it going to be, I don't know, it can be whoever you want it to be, as long as it makes sense in the, of course, in the context of the project and in relation to the priorities of the law. I would also like to take the opportunity to strengthen Yazenka's call for registration in PADOR of co-applicants. Note that this is how we will check whether you met, so certain lots have a minimum and maximum requirement of a number of co-applicants, and this will be assessed already at administrative check. So if, for example, you do not have a sufficient number of co-applicants that have PADOR registrations and are registered in prospect with your application, you can be disqualified based on this. We will not even look at the concept note. So this is very, very important that the co-applicants register in PADOR. So the fact that you would draft the concept note and you would say in the context of the concept note, yes, we have this co-applicant and this other co-applicant is not sufficient. We need to see in prospect the organizations and with their PADOR registrations so that we can count and say, yes, this organization has, this project meets the minimum and maximum criteria for number of co-applicants, this other doesn't. And I see that actually this question on number of applications that you can submit it keeps coming back, which is why I would like to go actually to page 26. So on page 26, you see the rules. Number of applications and grants per applicant / affiliated entities. The first one, the lead applicant may submit more than one application under this call. The lead applicant may not be awarded more than one grant under this call. So if you are the lead applicant, you can submit, even under the same lot, you can submit more applications, you on the lead, but then you leave it up to us to decide which application we move forward with if you are awarded more, if you have a positive evaluation of more than one proposal submitted. The lead applicant may be a co-applicant or an affiliated entity in another application of the same lot at the same time. By extension, this means that the lead applicant may be a co-applicant also under other lots of this call. However, next sentence, a co-applicant affiliated entity may not be the co-applicant or affiliated entity in more than 3 applications under this call. So you do have this restriction that you can be a co-applicant in maximum 3 applications. And this section ends with a co-applicant affiliated entity may not be awarded more than 1 grant per lot under this call of proposals. Now, what does it mean? Again, you can, as a lead applicant, you can submit as many applications as you want. As a lead applicant, you can also be a co-applicant in maximum 3 other applications. However, as a lead applicant or as a co-applicant, you will be awarded only 1 application. that means that, you know, if you go with too many proposals as a co-applicant, for example, you may lead to the, you may force us to exclude some proposals because you will be awarded, you know, you can be awarded maximum once as a lead applicant and once as a co-applicant. So you can be at the same time awarded, you know, you can be a lead applicant and co-applicant in successful proposals, but only once. So if you know, if you're going with a formula where, for example, you would want to be a lead applicant in a winning proposal and then co-applicant in 3 different other proposals that are also winning, most likely 2 of those where you are co-applicant will be disqualified. So of course, I'm sure that this will not sit very well with your partners who may want to, who may not want to be disqualified and who may not want to have invested so much in preparing an application. But I hope that this is clear, and I believe that this is in the official clarifications as well. So I hope it will be easier also to retrieve there. Okay, so basically we will have another session in 2 days. It will be our last session. You are still able to submit clarification requests by the 24th of July, and then we will have a last publishing. And I wish you all the best of luck with finalizing your concept notes. I hope that everyone has registered in Pador already, signed their profiles, so that this will not hold you back. Thank you very much to all, and I wish you all a very good day. Bye-bye.